Antonio Williams, the wide receiver out of Clemson, is, in my opinion, the best wide receiver that absolutely nobody is talking about. But we're going to talk about him here, John. We're going to get into his all 22 tape. We're going to look at the key analytic benchmarks. We're going to understand the player background because I think that's especially key when considering Antonio Williams' value. Then we're going to put it all together here. We're going to wrap up the episode by giving some actionable fantasy football advice as to when you should be taking Antonio Williams in your rookie drafts. Folks, do us a huge favor. If you are enjoying this video, if you learn even one new thing about Antonio Williams, give the video a like. We really appreciate it. It helps us get more eyeballs, and we have been absolutely crushing on the views this year. We appreciate your support. We would love to keep that momentum rolling as we very quickly, John, approach the NFL draft and rookie draft season. I also want to give a quick shout out here. The 2026 Rookie Guide Volume 1 is out. 86 player profiles, 121 pages, breaking down my scouting and evaluation process, fantasy, college production, film review, breakdowns for each one of those players in their profile. And the Monday after the NFL draft, Volume 2 drops with their 2026 projection as well. All right, John, let's get into Antonio Williams, the wide receiver out of Clemson. Kind of a funky 2025 season, but he's been a contributor for the Tigers for a while now.
I'm kind of excited to break him down. And I remember a time in the past 15 years when Clemson was a cornucopia of elite wide receiver prospects. Sammy Watkins, DeAndre Hopkins, T. Higgins. Unfortunately, the Tigers haven't really been producing at that high level, but I do believe that Antonio Williams is one of the sneakier prospects to come out at wide receiver for Clemson. He went to the combine and he ran a 4.4140. I did not expect that. I was really impressed with that time. So that's a good sign about his athleticism. However, when you look at it overall, his speed and burst scores for his size, they're both under the 90 percentile. So he's a good athlete. He's just not a tremendous athlete. And I do think he's a better football player and a wide receiver than he is actually just an athlete. But doesn't mean that he can't succeed in the NFL. I think he has lots of traits that we're going to look at tonight. In high school, he was a 4-star recruit and the number 61 ranked player and number 6 wide receiver in the nation. He's an immediate starter as a true freshman in 2022. 56 catches for 604 yards and 4 touchdowns. He started 10 of 14 games, and he led the Tigers in receiving. He earned first-team freshman All-American. However, he only played 5 games as a sophomore because of injuries, and he redshirted the 2023 campaign. In 2024, he was healthy and back on the field. He was really good. He recorded a receiving, a rushing, and a passing touchdown that season. He established career highs with 75 catches, 904 yards, and 11 touchdowns. He was named first team All-ACC. Matt, I was so excited heading into the 2025 season. Unfortunately, the Tigers' offense fell apart.
Oh.
Woo! It was tough watch. The Tigers were not very good. And it hurt Antonio Williams and his production. But he still had 55 catches, 604 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He was named third team All-ACC. Here's where his versatility shines. In his career, he had 25 carries for 187 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 43 punt returns for 351 yards, averaging 9 yards a punt return. And he's the 5th player in Clemson history with 200 catches. Matt, I like the film. Why don't we share some tape for our viewers?
Yeah, let's get into it here for Antonio Williams, a wide receiver out of Clemson. The first one you're going to see is a little bit of a jet sweep. They like to get the ball in his hands really any way they can.
Yes, and I agree with that. Any way they can.
I love his catch and turn ability here. You saw it on those last two plays. He's got very fluid hips. He flips them quickly, and so he can really catch the ball and continue upfield very well. Nice concentration there to bring home this touchdown.
And
He's
good
got
body control.
Yeah, very good point there. He's not the biggest guy, but he goes up and extends well for it.
Yeah, I think he uses his full body and his arms as best as he can for someone who's 5'11".
Yeah, look at that contact balance.
Yes.
I mean, he is really a threat after the catch there, and he's not juking guys out, but he's very slippery.
Yeah, and I kind of think he's kind of strong.
Yeah.
I think, he takes people on. I think he plays bigger than his weight.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And again, folks, if you're not used to our process, we're not cutting up highlights here. This is every target from two different games. I mean, they want to get him the ball, right? And so he does get a lot of rushing.
They had some wide receivers who are highly ranked coming out of high school, but they have not lived up to the billing. So he was the guy this year.
Yeah. And, again, the offense was just
wide open.
Yeah, wide open there. Nice release. I love his release. That last play wasn't the best example, but it does give me an opportunity to talk about it. I think he's got one of the best first steps in the class. In breaking routes, he's consistently separating in the first 5 yards. He could beat guys in press coverage. I think that's something that makes him really special. Look at his late adjustment there. He comes back to that ball, John, and is still able to turn upfield and continue after the catch very well.
Yeah, I also think, Matt, he's good in traffic in the middle of the field.
Yes.
Which I do believe the NFL scouts will really like that and appreciate that in him.
Yeah, especially because he's going to be playing in the slot.
Yes, I agree. He's probably, and maybe a little Z if they have to, but mostly a slot receiver.
Yeah. So you look at his routes, he's running a decent route tree here.
Oh, yeah.
I do think he's got the ability to make an impact at the next level here. It's the reliable hands at all three levels of the field. You mentioned it, John. It's that comfortability winning in traffic. He adjusts well to off-target balls. He's speedy off the snap. I think he accelerates well. I talked about his first step. I really like that. I think in terms of weaknesses, I mean, you looked at him, I mentioned it. He's not elusive. He's not twitching, twitchy. He's a little stiff, but he's slippery. He's got the strength, like you mentioned it. His 2025 tape and production is in a limited offense, right? So you really don't even get to see kind of everything. If you go back and watch his 2024 tape, you're going to like him a lot better, right? That's kind of where I fell in love with his game, was the 2024
I agree. He was
tape.
Better, much better.
Yeah. So, the question is, right, always we're thinking about, how does he fit into a spreadsheet, right? How does he fit into the Rookie Big Board projection sheet? Breaks down all 32 NFL teams. It's available to all Rookie Big Board patrons over at patreon.com/rookiebigboard. So how does Antonio Williams fit into that sheet? 76 in 2025, 76% catch rate with a 1.8% drop rate. That's awesome, folks.
Yeah.
That's a really awesome. And like Cade Klubnik, not the best year. So, I mean, that's really fantastic. And then if you take John at 10 yards or less, his catch rate goes up to 88%. I think the majority of his targets at the next level are going to come at 10 yards or less. So I think you have the ability to put him at a catch rate in a projection sheet for a rookie wide receiver, potentially above 75%. That's a wicked high number to realistically be thinking about plugging in for a rookie wide receiver. But Antonio Williams, man, he fits the bill. He has a 1.94 yards per route run and an 8.4 ADOT. Those are low. Those are not good numbers. That's not what you necessarily want to see. And so I do think he's going to max out probably 10.5 yards per reception. I mentioned it, he's probably going to play slot at the next level. His 2024 tape, he actually played 40% out wide. He played, and I thought he did better when he was lined up out wide in 2024. Part of the reason where I think his film feels more limited in 2025 is 93% of his total snaps this year were in the slot. So he really did get moved inside. And one of the things that's, I think, hard to reckon with from a production perspective, 11 touchdowns in 2024. Again, playing out wide more, 4 touchdowns in 2025. So I think 3 to 7 touchdowns is going to be in the projection sheet for him. We've got to see offense. Slot rookie wide receiver, probably closer to 3 than it is 7, right? And that's a big swing when it comes to, how does he shake out in terms of fantasy football production. But we'll get into that to wrap up the episode. Before we get there, John, we need to talk about the analytics here because you've identified 6 key benchmarks for wide receivers in terms of their ability to translate for fantasy football production. And we need to look at how Antonio Williams lines up against those.
I will say this. I do like his film better than my model likes him. But I have to put that into context. He was hurt his second season in college. And the offense, when we say it fell apart, Matt, how tough was it to watch that Clemson offense this year?
Oh, it was brutal.
It was brutal. So I understand why the model has some concerns about him, but I do like his tape so much, and I think he's a better football player than he is necessarily the model understands. So he only hits 2 of 6 key benchmarks. Now, I have a typo. I apologize. He had 208 career receptions. I have 187 there. So no matter what, he shatters the career receptions. So he has lots of experience. I do like his route tree, Matt. I think it's one of the better route trees on film that we've looked at this year. They used him in all types of different ways, especially if you go back to his freshman year. He also has nice hands. I actually think he has great hands. I think his body control and his hands are outstanding. He has a 74% catch rate. So I really like those two. Now, where my model says there's a little bit of concern. Yards per reception, only 11.2. But I do think that's part of the Clemson offense, Matt. How often did they get him the ball in a lot of space where he could explode upfield? I don't think they used him as well. Part of it's the quarterback play. Part of it was a bad offensive line. They had to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands. His ADOT. Matt, they just had to get him the ball. It's 7.7. It doesn't hit my benchmark. It's not a total disaster, but 7.7 isn't great. Team dominator. He just misses it 23%. That's okay. I would like to see a little bit higher, but that's all right. My concern in the model, receiving yards per team pass attempt, 1.69. That is concern. I'm looking for a 2.5. I will like Antonio Williams a ton in the 3rd round of dynasty drafts, Matt. I think that's where his value is. I will be scooping him up as much as possible. Matt, what your fantasy fans know?
I think we're going to start with draft capital here. I think he's a day 2 pick. I think NFL teams are going to like him, probably round 3. Again, we could see 14, 15 wide receivers go, days 1 and 2. So it's going to be an exciting run of players. And I think because so many guys go that even if he gets that good draft capital, I think he's going to be in the 3rd round all day. I've game theoried this out. I've looked at all the players, how they shake out. And I think Antonio Williams is solidly a mid 3rd round player. And dude, I'm scooping it up all day long. I love that. 307 to 310 is my projected range in super flex leagues. In one quarterback, 304 to 307. You could bump that up a little bit. I always talk about, John, how do these players fit into a spreadsheet, right? Who had similar types of production in the NFL last year that I can help kind of draw you to. And what I landed on is 80% of Jacoby Myers. That's the best that I could land on. And the reason I say that is when you look at Jacoby Myers, 68% catch rate, I think that is the floor for Antonio Williams. I think that's very similar to where he's going to be at. Jacoby Myers, 3 touchdowns. I mentioned, I was worried about the touchdowns there. So that's a very similar number. Jacoby Myers, 11 yards per reception. Antonio Williams at 10.5.
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad. And Jacoby Myers finished as wide receiver 31 last year for the Jags. The reason that he did is he had 110 targets. I don't think Antonio Williams gets 110 targets, but I could see him getting 80 targets, right? And so
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm getting at. And that would get him to wide receiver 36 to 41. So I think if you're thinking about Antonio Williams, the way he would contribute to your team, you put him in the flex spot. He's a really steady, reliable presence. And that's somebody, John, who, quite frankly, mid third round, I have good exposure, listed here 26 to 40%. But, talking through it with you, man, I might be 100%, dude. If he's sitting there at 306 and I'm up,
I love that value on him, man.
Yeah, it would be really hard for me to pass on him at that value. I think it's an outstanding spot to get him. But John, our viewers and our listeners, they don't have to wait to the late third round of their rookie drafts to get good value. They can right now head on over to the link in the episode description, patreon.com/rookiebigboard. Get our 2026 rookie guide, volume 1. It's out now. 86 profiles, rookie, Devy, dynasty rankings, personalized advice in the Rookie Big Board Discord. Awesome community. So much more. John, we're going to be back real soon, breaking down another key prospect in this 2026 rookie class.